Hi everyone, welcome to Code Kamkaj YouTube channel. I hope everybody are doing good. In the last videos, we had discussed about YAML syntax and we had discussed about components and we had discussed about how many build types does GitHub Actions supports. So today's video, we will be discussing about the difference between GitHub hosted runners and self-hosted runners. So first thing, if you would like to run your workflows, if you'd like to run your pipeline, so you should have a runner attached to your CI/CD tool. And GitHub has been giving two features. One is like GitHub hosted runners and self-hosted runners. So you can use either one of that, and you can enable your pipelines on top of GitHub Actions, and you can run all your workflows. But there is some like major differences, if you have been using GitHub hosted runners and self-hosted runners. So in that, I'm going to I have bring few aspects as a list. So we are going to call each one of the aspect, and we'll figure out which one is suitable for best practices, whether it's a GitHub hosted runner or self-hosted runner. And the first one is as aspect I brought is a hosting responsibility. So when it comes to hosting responsibility of GitHub hosted runners, it's completely managed by GitHub, and it's a responsibility of GitHub, where it has been. It might be used its GitHub um, internal cloud, or it might use its on-premises data centers to take the runner. So it's completely held managed by GitHub organization itself. So you don't need to worry about renting the VMs. You don't need to worry about configuring all security patches or configurations. You don't need to worry about anything. So here GitHub is going to manage everything, and it will add it to your repository. When it comes to self-hosted runners, so it has to manage by you or your organization from end to end, from renting the virtual machines from your your data center, or you purchase from your any market, or you can rent it from cloud providers such as AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. So here it's completely in a self-hosted runner. It's completely managed by you or your organization, and your responsibility to maintain that runner and attach that runner to your GitHub Actions. So that's the hosting responsibility aspects. When it comes to costs, so GitHub has been giving some free type for public repository, and it has been giving some usage limits, and it's going to apply for public repositories, and it is giving of like a paid tried for private repositories, and including additional costs. So GitHub Actions, GitHub hosted runners is count the cost by minute, so you need to be more cautious while you are choosing the GitHub hosted runners. When it comes to self-hosted runner, so it's fully customized by users or your organizations. like you know I mean, it has to be completely bear by you, where you're hosting that, including like hardware and what kind of softwares and what kind of maintenance. So that's your responsibility to take the server. Either it can be your your own cloud, or you might have purchased from others, your market, or that's your responsibility to rent the server from cloud provider, and you need to pay the amount of time you use that virtual machine into your GitHub Action. So to your cloud provider. It can be AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. So that's your responsibility to handle when you comes to self-hosted runner, and you have to be paid as per usage of your hardware, and all the including softwares, and how much time you have used. And when it comes to configuration, so when it comes to GitHub Ocean, it's pre-configured, common softwares tools such as SDKs, or container runtime such as Docker, and dynamic languages such as Python. It will come with a Node.js and other other tools and other configuration. So this is the biggest advantage of GitHub Ocean. So you don't need to worry about in what kind of configuration that you need to do and all. When it comes to self-hosted, so it has to be managed all the specific softwares, dependencies, configurations, including everything you have to manage by your own hand in your organization. So when it comes to scalability, so GitHub hosted runners, it will automatically scale as it's needed based on your requirement and based on the load that has been coming on the runner side. When it comes to self-hosted, so you have to manage and scale manually, and you need to add any additional runners, like if you would like to enhance your scaling up and scaling down. When it comes to environment support, so as already know, GitHub Actions supports various environments such as Linux, Windows, Mac OS. And even the self-hosted runners support the same thing, Linux, Windows, Mac OS, but it has been giving environment specific distribution. Like if you're taking Linux distribution, like we have the different kind of distributions such as Windows, oh sorry, Linux has Ubuntu, CentOS, and Red Hat, and different kinds of distributions are there. So you can use a distribution specific into your self-hosted runners, and you can use self-hosted runner for custom Windows builds. So if you are using C language or C sharp, if you are using a Windows type of build, so you can use a custom Windows build for a system self-hosted runners. So that's about the aspects of environment support. When it comes to security, so in terms of GitHub hosted runners, it's securely managed by GitHub itself. But when it comes to sensitive data, it should still handle by your workflow. So you need to be more careful while you are injecting the sensitive information into your workflows and calling the sensitive information or injecting your tokens, API tokens. So you should be more careful while you're handling your GitHub hosted runners, because you're dealing with the sensitive information. So if that runner that you have been that the runner is managed by GitHub, so if it is compromised by any attacker in the backend from the GitHub, so it's going to be big issue for you, because that runner is going to have some certain amount of sensitive information while you're running your workflows. So here, you should be more careful while you're choosing GitHub hosted runner on top of your security. When it comes to self-host runner, so you have a amazing control over the security, and whose user is using what kind of role, and you can manage rollback access controls, and you can have an entire command of entire system, and you can mention what all best practices you can use to prevent attack on your self-host runners if it is if it is about to compromise by any attacker. So when that's the final in conclusion based on the security. So here the GitHub ocean is securely managed by GitHub, but still it is losing some kind of trust when you're dealing with the uh, sensitive data. So you should be more careful while you're handling it. When it comes to self-hosted, so it's completely have over control by you itself, so you can enable n number of layers on the security on top of your self-hosted. So that's the aspect of security. When it comes to network access, so GitHub hosted runners cannot access private networks or resources directly. So that's the biggest disadvantage of GitHub hosted runners. When it comes to self-hosted runners, so it can be configured to access the private networks, and it can be configured to access the internal servers, and it can be configured to access your any other restricted resources that you have enabled multi-level kind of layers of security. So when it comes to maintenance aspect, so this GitHub Ocean runners is updated and maintained by the runner automatically by the GitHub organization itself, and it will manage by everything from the GitHub organization. They will give you some certain amount of window, this window is going to be managed or maintained for patches, and or any dependencies related to the the version or the flavor of the runner which is managed by. It can be Mac OS, it can be Linux, or it can be Windows. When it comes to self-host runners, so maintenance responsibility is of yourself, or your responsibility of your organization that you are in, and it is your responsibility for updates, maintenance, and troubleshooting of all issues in your self-host runners. So that's your you have to be more choosy whichever you are going to use for in organization. It can be GitHub host runner, or it can be self-host runner. So when it comes to use case, GitHub ocean runners are generally used for regular workflows or general workflows. And if you would like to make a quick setup, and when you would like to use for multiple environments are required, so that situation you can use a GitHub ocean runner. When it comes to self-hosted node, so this self-hosted node is best for any specific task or workflows require priority software that you would like to install as per customization, or there is a runner you would like to access for private and internal network infrastructure. So that situation you can use a self-hosted runners, and it is more secure, I can say that, than the GitHub oceaner, because end of the day GitHub oceaner is organized by GitHub. So still they give you a trustworthy of hey, you don't need to worry about managing the thing, and we are we have been enabling all the security and everything. But still, if you are into the banking sector or banking kind of information that you handle every day, so that time your organization or your client may be approved for GitHub oceaner instead of going with a self-hosted. So that's the difference between a GitHub hosted runner and self-hosted runner I brought as the point. So it's up to you which one you would like to choose, based on all use case, like maintenance, network access, and security and support of environment, and scalability and configurations, and the cost, especially when it comes to the high top, and the hosting responsibility. So I just brought my assumption, like how I feel in terms of these two, GitHub hosted and self-hosted runners. So it's up to you how you'd like to judge, between these two runners, and accordingly take the actions whichever you would like to use it in your organization. So I hope it is clear for you, making understanding GitHub hosted and self-hosted runners. So I'm going to stop this video here. And if you like my explanation, I request you to like, share, subscribe to Code Kamikaze YouTube channel. And thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Bye bye.